The announcement. Princess Zara stood before the massive windows of the royal palace on planet Andromeda 7. Her purple skin caught the light from their twin suns and created a soft shimmer across her body. She pressed her forehead against the cool crystal surface and watched the floating cities drift through the clouds below. Everything in her world was about to change. The great doors behind her opened with a whisper. She heard the footsteps of the High Council members as they entered the throne room. Zara turned slowly to face them. Their robes swept the floor as they formed a semicircle around her father, King Zoran. Her mother, Queen Lyria, sat beside him on the silver throne. Their faces showed no emotion. Princess Zara, her father's voice echoed through the chamber. The High Council has reached a decision about your future. Zara's 3 hearts began beating faster. She had known this day would come. As the only heir to the Andromedan throne, her marriage would determine the fate of their entire star system. She straightened her back and lifted her chin. The war with Earth has gone on too long, continued Elder Thex, the oldest member of the council. Thousands have died on both sides. Our resources are exhausted. We need peace. Zara nodded. She understood the cost of war better than most. She had visited the hospitals and seen the wounded soldiers. She had attended too many funerals for fallen warriors. But what did this have to do with her marriage? We have negotiated a treaty with the humans, her father announced. To seal this peace agreement, you will marry one of their kind. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her hands gripping the window ledge for support. Marry a human. The very thought made her stomach turn. Father, surely there must be another way, she whispered. This is the only way. Queen Lyria spoke for the first time. The humans insisted on a royal marriage to ensure our commitment to peace. You will wed their chosen ambassador, Michael Chen. Zara's mind raced with everything she knew about humans. They were violent creatures who had destroyed their own planet with wars and pollution. They lived for barely 100 years, while Andromedans could live for 1,000. They couldn't communicate telepathically. They couldn't see the full spectrum of colors that Andromedans could. How could she possibly marry such a primitive being? When? She managed to ask. In 1 moon cycle, Elder Thex replied. The ceremony will take place on the neutral space station between our territories. 1 moon cycle, 30 days to prepare herself for a lifetime with an alien she had never met. Zara felt her telepathic shields weakening as panic flooded through her. I need to be alone, she said. The council members bowed and left the throne room. Her parents remained seated, watching her with concern. Zara couldn't meet their eyes. She fled to her private chambers and sealed the door behind her. In her room, surrounded by familiar comforts, the full weight of her duty crashed down upon her. She collapsed onto her bed and buried her face in the silk pillows. She had always known she would marry for political reasons, but she had assumed it would be to someone from a neighboring Andromedan colony, not a human. Her personal servant, Mira, entered quietly. My lady, can I bring you anything? Information, Zora said, sitting up. Everything we have about humans, about Earth, about this Michael Chen. Mira bowed and returned moments later with a data crystal. Zara activated her holographic display and began scrolling through the files. Images of Earth filled her room, a blue and green world that humans had nearly destroyed. Pictures of their cities, overcrowded and polluted. Records of their endless wars. Then she found the file on Michael Chen. The hologram showed a human male with black hair and brown eyes. He appeared to be young by human standards, perhaps 30 Earth years. He worked as both a diplomat and a doctor. His record showed he had opposed the war and worked for peace. Still, he was human. How could she share her life with someone so different? How could she touch that pale, soft skin? How could she look into those strange, small eyes every day? The wedding would happen whether she wanted it or not. The fate of 2 species depended on this union. Zara stared at the hologram of her future husband and wondered if she would ever be able to love him. The thought seemed impossible. In 30 days, she would find out. The journey. The royal spacecraft Silver Dream sailed through the darkness of space. Stars stretched into lines of light as the ship moved faster than light speed. Princess Zora stood in the observation deck, watching the cosmos blur past the windows. In just 3 days, she would meet the human she had to marry. Commander Vex, her guardian since childhood, entered the deck quietly. The old warrior's blue scales reflected the starlight as he approached. He had protected Zora for 20 years and knew her better than anyone except her parents. "You haven't eaten in 2 days, Princess," he said softly. "I'm not hungry," Zora replied without turning from the window. "You need your strength. The meeting will be difficult enough without you being weak from hunger." Zara finally looked at him. Dark circles had formed under her violet eyes. Her usually vibrant purple skin had faded to a dull lavender. The stress was taking its toll on her body. "How can I eat when I'm about to meet my doom?" she asked. "Is marrying the human really worse than continuing this war?" Vex questioned gently. "You've fought humans, Vex. You know what they're like. They're violent and primitive. They can't even communicate telepathically. How am I supposed to bond with someone when I can't touch their mind?" Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have fought humans, yes. They are different from us. But I've also seen their courage, their loyalty to each other. Perhaps they are not as primitive as we think." Zara shook her head. "Their history speaks for itself. Wars, genocide, environmental destruction. They nearly killed their own planet, and yet they survived. They learned. They reached the stars," Vex pointed out. The princess turned back to the window. Outside, the stars began to slow as they approached their destination. The neutral space station would soon be visible. Her heart began beating faster. "Tell me about him again," she said quietly. Vex activated his datapad. Michael Chen, age 32 Earth years. Born in a place called San Francisco. Trained as a doctor before becoming a diplomat. He speaks 7 Earth languages and has learned basic Andromedan. His psychological profile shows high intelligence and empathy. "Empathy," Zara repeated. "How can a race that wages so much war understand empathy?" "Perhaps you should ask him when you meet," Vex suggested. A soft chime filled the observation deck. Captain Lorem's voice came through the speakers. "Princess, we are approaching the station. Arrival in 1 hour." Zara's hands trembled. 1 hour until she met her future husband. 1 hour until her life changed forever. She closed her eyes and tried to calm her 3 hearts. "I should prepare," she said. In her quarters, Zora's attendants helped her dress in the traditional meeting gown. The fabric shifted between deep purple and silver, responding to her emotional state. Right now, it flickered rapidly between colors, betraying her anxiety. "You look beautiful, Princess," said her handmaiden Keela. Zara studied herself in the mirror. Her long silver hair was woven with crystal beads. Her gown flowed like water around her tall, slender form. She looked every inch the royal princess. But inside, she felt like a frightened child. "What if he's horrible?" she whispered. "Then you'll deal with it as you've dealt with every challenge," Keela replied. With grace and strength. The ship shuddered slightly as it docked with the station. Zara felt her telepathic abilities reaching out instinctively, searching for minds. She sensed her own crew's emotions. Excitement, worry, curiosity. But beyond them, she felt unfamiliar presences, human minds. They felt different from Andromedan minds, where her people's thoughts flowed like streams. Human thoughts seemed to spark and jump like electricity. She couldn't read them clearly, but she sensed their energy. "The airlock is secure," Captain Lorem announced. "The human delegation is waiting." Zara took a deep breath. Commander Vex appeared at her door, dressed in his ceremonial armor. Her parents had sent a full honor guard to make a strong impression. 20 warriors flanked her as she walked toward the airlock. With each step, her destiny came closer. Soon, She would see the face of the man she had to marry. Would he be kind? Cruel? Would he look at her with disgust, as she feared she might look at him? The airlock doors loomed before her. Behind them waited Michael Chen and her future. Zara touched the pendant her mother had given her for luck. Then she nodded to Vex. "Open the doors," she commanded. The first glimpse. The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss. Princess Zara stepped forward, her honor guard moving in perfect formation beside her. The neutral space station's reception hall stretched out before them, its white walls and high ceiling designed to accommodate beings from many worlds. And there he was. Michael Chen stood at the far end of the hall with his own delegation. He wore a dark blue diplomatic uniform that fit his frame perfectly. His black hair was neatly combed, and his posture was straight but not stiff. He looked different from what Zara had expected. As she walked closer, her violet eyes studied every detail. His skin wasn't the sickly pale she had imagined, but a warm golden brown. He was tall for a human, though still shorter than her by a few inches. His face was calm, but she noticed the slight tension in his jaw that betrayed his nervousness. When their eyes met, something strange happened. Zara's telepathic shields, which she had reinforced for this meeting, suddenly wavered. For just a moment, she felt a flash of emotion from him. Not the aggression or primitiveness she expected, but genuine awe and respect. Michael stepped forward and performed a perfect Andromedan bow, his right hand over his heart and his left extended palm up. The gesture was flawless, as if he had practiced it 1,000 times. "Princess Zora," he said in carefully pronounced Andromedan, "it is an honor to meet you. I am Michael Chen, representative of Earth." His voice was deeper than she expected, with a musical quality that surprised her. When he spoke her language, he took care with each syllable, showing respect for her culture. Zara found herself momentarily speechless. She had prepared for arrogance or ignorance, not this thoughtful courtesy. She returned the bow, her training taking over. "Ambassador Chen," she replied in English, a language she had studied but rarely used. "Welcome to this meeting." A small smile crossed his face when she spoke his language. Not a smirk or a grin, but a genuine expression of pleasure. "Thank you for speaking English," he said, switching to his native tongue. "I know my Andromedan needs more work." "Your pronunciation is quite good," Zara admitted, surprising herself with the compliment. They stood facing each other for a moment, neither sure what to say next. Zara's telepathic senses kept brushing against his mind, but she couldn't read his thoughts clearly. What she did sense continued to puzzle her: warmth, intelligence, and underneath it all, a deep sadness that seemed at odds with his pleasant expression. Commander Vex stepped forward. "Perhaps we should move to the conference room for the formal discussions." Michael nodded and gestured for Zara to walk beside him. As they moved through the station, she noticed how he matched his pace to hers, careful not to walk too fast or too slow. "I've read about Andromeda 7, he said as they walked. "Your floating cities sound magnificent. I hope to see them someday." "You have studied our world?" Zara asked, unable to hide her surprise. "Of course. I'd spent the past year learning everything I could about your people, your culture, your history." He paused, then added quietly, "I wanted to understand, not just memorize facts." They entered the conference room, where both delegations took their seats. The formal negotiations would cover wedding details, trade agreements, and colony rights. But Zara found herself distracted by the humans sitting across from her. When he spoke about the peace treaty, his passion was evident. He talked about the lives that would be saved, the opportunities for both species to learn from each other. His dark eyes lit up when he described his vision of humans and Andromedans working together. During a break in the discussions, Zora's advisor whispered to her, "He seems more civilized than we expected." Zara nodded slightly, her eyes still on Michael. He was reviewing documents with his team, but she caught him glancing at her several times. Each time their eyes met, he offered that same gentle smile. As the day wore on, Zara felt her preconceptions crumbling. Michael asked intelligent questions about Andromedan law and customs. He showed genuine interest in their art and philosophy. When one of his advisors made a dismissive comment about Andromedan technology, Michael quickly corrected him. "Different doesn't mean inferior," she heard him say firmly. "We have much to learn from them." The statement made Zora's telepathic shields waver again. This time, she didn't try to strengthen them. She wanted to understand this unexpected human who spoke of peace with such conviction. As the first day of negotiations ended, Michael approached her once more. "Princess, I know this situation is difficult for both of us. But I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work, not just for our planets, but for us as individuals." Zora looked into his eyes and saw sincerity there. For the first time since hearing about this marriage, she felt a tiny spark of hope. "I appreciate your honesty, Ambassador," she said. "Please, call me Michael," he replied. She nodded slowly. "Then you must call me Zara." As she returned to her ship that night, Zara couldn't stop thinking about the human she had just met. He wasn't what she expected. He wasn't primitive or violent or crude. He was thoughtful and kind, and surprisingly complex. Maybe, just maybe, this marriage wouldn't be the disaster she feared. The dining hall of the space station gleamed with soft blue light. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting rainbow patterns on the white walls. Zara entered wearing a flowing dress that shifted from purple to gold as she moved. Michael was already there, standing by the window that showed the vast expanse of stars. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Tonight he wore a simple black suit instead of his military uniform. The change made him look younger, more approachable. "Good evening, Zara," he said, pulling out her chair. She sat down gracefully, still adjusting to these small Earth courtesies. On Andromeda 7, such gestures were performed by servants, not equals. "I wondered if you would come," Michael admitted as he took his own seat. "It is expected," Zara replied formally. "Is that the only reason?" His dark eyes searched her face. The question caught her off guard. She had prepared for diplomatic small talk, not personal inquiries. A server appeared with their first course, a selection of foods from both worlds. "I admit I was curious," Zora finally answered. "You are not what I expected from a human." Michael smiled slightly. "What did you expect?" "Someone aggressive, primitive, unable to appreciate culture or beauty." She picked up her fork, noting how he had ensured Andromedan utensils were provided for her. "Your species has a violent history." "We do," Michael agreed without defensiveness. "We've made terrible mistakes, wars that killed millions. We've damaged our planet badly." He paused, considering his words. "But we're trying to learn, to grow, to become better." "Yet you still fight among yourselves," Zora pointed out. "Less than before. It's a slow process, changing an entire species." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, has Andromeda 7 always been peaceful?" Zara hesitated. Her people's history included dark chapters they rarely discussed. "No," she admitted. "We had our wars too, thousands of years ago, before we developed telepathy." "What changed?" "When we learned to touch each other's minds, we couldn't hide our true feelings anymore. It's harder to hate someone when you can feel their pain, their fear, their love." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Humans don't have telepathy, but we have empathy. We're learning to see past our differences." "Is that why you became a diplomat?" Zara asked. "Partly." He took a sip of water. "I was a doctor first. During the war, I treated soldiers from both sides, human and Andromedan. Pain sounds the same in any language." The sadness she had sensed in him earlier returned to his eyes. Zara felt her telepathic barriers weakening again. She caught glimpses of memories, a field hospital, injured beings crying out, Michael working desperately to save lives. "That must have been difficult," she said softly. "It changed me, made me realize we had to find another way." He looked directly at her. "That's why I volunteered for this marriage. I believe in this peace treaty." "Only for the treaty." The question slipped out before she could stop it. Michael's expression shifted. At first, yes. But now, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Now I find myself curious about you, not just as a princess or an Andromedan, but as a person. Zara felt heat rise to her cheeks, making her purple skin darken. She wasn't used to such direct conversation. Tell me about Earth, she said, changing the subject. The real Earth, not what's in our databases. Michael's face lit up. Where should I start? The oceans cover most of our world. The Pacific is so vast you can sail for days without seeing land. The water changes color with the weather, deep blue on calm days, gray-green during storms. As he spoke, his hands moved expressively. He described forests where trees grew taller than Andromedan buildings, deserts where sand dunes sang in the wind, mountains so high they touched the clouds. His love for his planet was obvious in every word. We've made mistakes, he continued, but we're working to fix them. Solar panels and wind farms are replacing fossil fuels. We're cleaning the oceans, replanting forests. My sister is a marine biologist. She's helping restore coral reefs. You have a sister. Zara found herself leaning forward. 2 sisters and a brother. Amy's the scientist. Lisa teaches children. David composes music. He smiled. They're all excited to meet you. The casual assumption that she would meet his family made something flutter in Zora's chest. She had been thinking of this marriage as a formal arrangement, not a joining of families. Do they know about me? She asked. Everything I could tell them. David's already composing a piece that combines Earth and Andromedan musical scales. He says it's a wedding gift. They continued talking through 7 courses. Michael asked about her childhood, her education, her interests. He listened intently when she described Andromedan poetry, even asking her to recite a verse in her language, so he could hear its rhythm. Your language is beautiful, he said, like water flowing over stones. When she mentioned her fear of Earth's violence, he didn't dismiss it or make excuses. Instead, he acknowledged humanity's struggles while sharing stories of kindness and heroism. He told her about teachers who inspired children, scientists working to cure diseases, artists creating beauty from chaos. We're not perfect, he said, but we're not monsters either. We're just people trying to do better. As the evening ended, Zara realized she had enjoyed herself. The formal dinner she had dreaded had become a genuine conversation. Michael walked her to the door of her quarters. Thank you for tonight, he said, for giving me a chance to show you who we really are. Thank you for being patient with my prejudices, she replied. He smiled, that gentle expression she was beginning to recognize. We all have them. The important thing is being willing to look past them. After he left, Zara stood by her window, gazing at the stars. Her reflection stared back. A purple-skinned alien princess who had just spent 3 hours talking with a human and hadn't wanted it to end. Perhaps her mother was right. Perhaps the heart could find connections in the most unexpected places. Michael waited for Zara at the entrance to the station's botanical garden. He wore casual clothes today, a simple green shirt and dark pants. When she arrived, he noticed she had also chosen less formal attire, a flowing dress in soft lavender that complemented her purple skin. Thank you for meeting me, he said. I thought you might enjoy seeing this place. The doors opened to reveal a wonder. The botanical garden stretched out before them, a massive dome filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Earth roses grew beside Andromedan crystal flowers. Martian red vines climbed up trellises next to Venusian blue moss. It's beautiful, Zara breathed, her violet eyes wide with wonder. The station's designers created it as a symbol, Michael explained as they began walking down the central path. Different species growing together, each keeping their unique beauty while creating something new. They walked slowly, stopping often as Michael pointed out various plants. He knew surprising details about many of them. Which ones bloomed in zero gravity, which ones could survive in methane atmospheres, which ones produced edible fruits. How do you know so much about xenobotany? Zara asked. I studied it as a hobby, he admitted with a slightly embarrassed smile. After becoming a doctor, I remained curious about life in all its forms. Plants are fascinating. They adapt to impossible conditions and still find ways to bloom. They reached a section dedicated to earth flora. Michael led her to a rose bush covered in deep red blossoms. These are from my grandmother's garden, he said softly. She grew them in San Francisco. I brought seeds when I left Earth and convinced the garden keeper to plant them here. They're lovely, Zara said, leaning closer to examine the petals. The sweet fragrance filled her senses. Would you like one? Michael asked. Zara nodded. He carefully selected a perfect bloom and reached for the stem. Be careful of the thorns, Zara warned, but her warning came too late. She moved to stop him just as he grasped the stem. Her hand accidentally brushed against a thorn, and a drop of purple blood welled up on her finger. Oh no, I'm sorry, Michael said quickly. Without thinking, he gently took her hand in his. His touch was warm and surprisingly soft. Let me see. Zara's telepathic shields, already weakened from their previous meetings, completely collapsed at his touch. Suddenly, she could feel everything he was feeling. Concern for her injury, guilt that he had caused it, and underneath, something deeper, a growing affection that took her breath away. But more than emotions, she saw memories. She saw him as a child, helping his grandmother tend these same roses. She saw him studying late at night to become a doctor, driven by a desire to help others. She saw him treating wounded soldiers, both human and Andromedan, with equal compassion. It's just a small prick, he was saying, unaware of what was happening in her mind. He pulled out a small medical kit from his pocket. Doctors always carry these, he explained with a sheepish grin. As he cleaned the tiny wound and applied a healing gel, Zara saw more. She saw him volunteering for this marriage, knowing it might mean leaving Earth forever. She saw him studying Andromedan language and culture for months, determined to understand her people. She saw him looking at her picture, wondering if they could find happiness together. And she saw his first glimpse of her in person, felt his awe at her beauty, his relief at her kindness, his hope that maybe this arranged marriage could become something real. There, he said, finishing with the bandage. All better. Only then did he notice the tears streaming down her face. In Andromedan's, tears were silver, and they caught the light as they rolled down her purple cheeks. Zara, did I hurt you? I'm so sorry. No, she whispered. No, you didn't hurt me. She pulled her hand back slowly, her mind reeling from what she had experienced. Never had she connected so deeply with another mind, not even other Andromedans. Human minds were usually closed to her, but Michael's had opened like a flower in sunlight. What happened? He asked gently. You look different. How could she explain? That she had seen his soul, that she knew now he was nothing like what she had feared, that he was kind and gentle and good in ways that made her three hearts beat faster. I saw you, she said finally. The real you. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Your telepathy. When I touched you, she nodded, suddenly shy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. No, he said firmly. I'm glad. I've wanted to show you who I really am, but words aren't always enough. He paused, then asked, What did you see? That you're not what I expected, she said softly. That you're so much more. They stood there in the garden, surrounded by flowers from 100 worlds, neither sure what to say next. Finally, Michael broke the silence. The rose, he said, remembering why they were there. He carefully cut the stem, avoiding the thorns this time, and offered it to her. My grandmother always said roses were proof that beautiful things could still have thorns and remain worth cherishing. Zora accepted the flower, inhaling its sweet scent. Your grandmother was wise. She would have liked you, Michael said. She always told me that love could bloom in the most unexpected places. As they continued their walk through the garden, something had changed between them. The wall of fear and prejudice that Zara had built was crumbling. In its place, something new was growing, delicate as a seedling, but with the potential to bloom into something beautiful. When they reached a bench beneath alien trees with silver leaves, they sat together, no longer princess and diplomat, but just two people discovering each other. Zara held the rose carefully, its thorns no longer seeming dangerous, but merely part of its nature. "Tell me more about your grandmother," she said. As Michael shared stories of the wise woman who had raised him, Zara found herself moving closer on the bench. The garden around them bloomed with possibilities, a living reminder that different species could grow together in harmony. For the first time since learning of her arranged marriage, Zara felt hope blooming in her chest, like a flower opening to the sun. Days passed quickly on the neutral station. Zara found herself looking forward to each meeting with Michael. Today, she had something special planned. She waited in the recreation hall, wearing a traditional Andromedan dance outfit, flowing fabric that seemed to float around her body, changing colors as she moved. Michael arrived precisely on time, his eyes widening when he saw her. "You look magnificent," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Today, I teach you something from my world," Zara announced with a playful smile. "Andromedan dancing." Michael laughed, but she noticed he looked slightly nervous. "I should warn you, I'm not very graceful." "Everyone can learn," she said, taking his hand. The contact no longer surprised her, though it still sent warmth through her entire body. She led him to the center of the room, where she had set up a holographic projector. With a wave of her hand, the lights dimmed and stars appeared all around them. They seemed to be standing in space itself, surrounded by swirling galaxies. "Andromedan dance tells stories," she explained. "This one tells of the first meeting between the three moons of our world." Music filled the air, not heard but felt, vibrating through their bodies. It was unlike anything from Earth, seeming to come from the universe itself. "Follow my movements," Zara instructed, beginning to move. She flowed like water, her arms creating patterns in the air. Each gesture had meaning. This one represented a moon rising. That one showed starlight bending. Michael tried to copy her, but his movements were stiff and awkward. "Don't think so hard," she said gently. "Feel the music. Let it move through you." She took both his hands, guiding him through the basic steps. When he stumbled, nearly stepping on her feet, they both laughed. "I warned you," he said, embarrassed. "You're trying. That matters." She positioned his arms correctly. "In our culture, dance is communication. We speak with our bodies what words cannot say." They practiced for an hour. Slowly, Michael began to improve. He would never move like an Andromedan, but he found his own rhythm. When he finally completed a sequence without error, Zara clapped her hands in delight. "See, you can learn." Michael grinned, pleased with himself. "Your turn now. Let me show you something from Earth." He disappeared briefly and returned wheeling in an enormous black instrument. Zara recognized it from her studies. A piano. "Music is our universal language," he said, sitting on the bench. "This piece I composed myself. I wrote it. Well, I wrote it after meeting you." His fingers touched the keys, and melody filled the room. It started soft and uncertain, like their first meeting. Then it grew stronger, more confident. The notes danced around each other, separate but gradually interweaving. Zara sank into a chair, mesmerized. She had heard Earth music before, but this was different. This was personal. Through the melody, she could hear Michael's feelings, his initial nervousness, his growing hope, his wonder at discovering her. The piece built to a crescendo, then softened to something tender and intimate. When the last note faded, Zara realized she was crying again. Those silver tears that seemed to come so easily around him. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "Music helps me express things I can't say," Michael admitted. "Humans might not have telepathy, but we have other ways of sharing our souls." "Play it again," she requested. "This time, I want to dance to it." Michael began the piece once more. Zara stood and started to move, but not in traditional Andromedan style. Instead, she let the earth music guide her, creating something new. She combined elements of both worlds, the flowing movements of her people with the rhythm of his. As she danced, Michael watched in awe. The holographic stars still swirled around them, and she seemed to be dancing among them. Her dress shifted colors with the mood of the music. Deep blue for the sad parts, bright gold for the joyful sections. "You're incredible," he breathed when they finished. "We created something new," she said, slightly out of breath. "Not purely Andromedan or human, but both." They spent the rest of the afternoon sharing their cultures. Michael taught her chess, explaining it was an ancient earth game of strategy. Zara showed him how to paint with light crystals, an Andromedan art form. He read her Shakespeare, stumbling over the Old English. She recited Andromedan poetry, translating each verse. "Your poem about the binary stars," Michael said thoughtfully. "It's about love, isn't it? Two stars orbiting each other, forever connected, but never touching." "You understand," Zara said, surprised. "Most humans found Andromedan poetry too abstract." "It reminds me of us," he admitted. "Two different species, circling each other, drawn together but separated by our differences." "But binary stars share their light," Zara pointed out. "They make each other brighter." As the day ended, they realized how comfortable they had become together. The formal awkwardness of their first meetings had vanished. They could laugh at Michael's clumsy dancing and Zara's confusion about Earth jokes. They could sit in silence without discomfort. "I never thought I could feel this way about a human," Zara confessed as they walked back to their quarters. "I never thought I'd compose music for an alien princess," Michael replied with a grin. "Life surprises us." At her door, he hesitated. "Zara, I want you to know something. If you decide you can't go through with this marriage, I'll understand. I won't let politics force you into unhappiness." She looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his dark eyes. He was offering her freedom, even though she sensed how much he had come to care for her. "Ask me again in 3 days," she said softly. "After you meet my father." Michael nodded, understanding. The king of Andromeda 7 would arrive soon for the formal betrothal ceremony. Everything would become real then. No more quiet moments in gardens or dancing among stars. As Zara entered her quarters, she realized something had shifted inside her. The thought of marrying Michael no longer filled her with dread. Instead, she felt anticipation, even excitement. But would her father approve? Would their worlds accept this union? And most importantly, was she brave enough to choose love over fear? 3 days would tell. King Zoran's ship arrived at dawn. The massive vessel dwarfed the space station, its crystalline hull reflecting the light of distant stars. Zara stood at the window, watching her father's transport dock. Her 3 hearts beat rapidly with nervous energy. Michael found her there an hour later. He was dressed formally again, but she noticed the slight tension in his shoulders. Meeting her father clearly made him nervous too. "He's intimidating, isn't he?" she said without turning around. "The ship certainly is," Michael admitted. "I can only imagine what the king himself is like." Zara finally looked at him. "He's fair but protective. He agreed to this marriage for politics, but he loves me. If I tell him I'm unhappy, he'll end it." "And are you?" Michael asked quietly. "Unhappy?" Before she could answer, the doors opened. King Zoran entered with his royal guard. He was taller than his daughter, with the same purple skin but darker, almost midnight blue. His presence filled the room like a storm cloud. "Father," Zara bowed deeply. "My daughter," the king's voice rumbled like thunder. His violet eyes fixed on Michael. "And you must be the human." Michael bowed in perfect Andromedan style. "Your Majesty, I am honored to meet you." The king circled him slowly, like a predator studying prey. "You speak our language." "I studied it, Your Majesty. I believe understanding between our peoples starts with communication." "Pretty words," the king said dismissively. My daughter's happiness matters more than your politics. I agree completely, Michael replied, surprising everyone. Which is why I've already told Princess Zora she's free to refuse this marriage. No treaty is worth forcing someone into unhappiness. The king's eyebrows rose. He glanced at his daughter, who was staring at Michael with something like pride. Interesting, the king murmured. Walk with me, human. Alone. They left together, leaving Zara to pace anxiously. Commander Vex tried to distract her with reports from home, but she couldn't focus. What was her father saying? What was Michael revealing about his intentions? 2 hours later, they returned. The king's expression was unreadable, but Michael looked drained. He caught Zora's eye and gave her a small, reassuring nod. I need to speak with my daughter, the king announced. Privately. When they were alone, King Zoran sat heavily in a chair. For the first time in years, Zara saw him not as a king, but as a worried father. Tell me honestly, he said, what do you feel for this human? Zara sat beside him. At first, I was terrified. I believed all the stories about humans being violent and primitive. But Michael, he's different. He's kind and intelligent. He respects our culture. He makes me laugh. When I touch his mind, I see someone who genuinely wants peace between our worlds. And personally, what do you feel for him personally? She hesitated, then admitted, I care for him. More than I expected. More than I should, perhaps. The king sighed deeply. He said the same about you. He offered to call off the marriage if it would make you happy, even though I could see it would break his heart. He said that to you. He's either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both. The king stood and began pacing. I came here ready to end this arrangement. No treaty is worth my daughter's misery. But now I see something I didn't expect. Real affection between you. Possibly even love. He stopped in front of her. The question is, what do you choose? If I refuse, then we continue as before. The war goes on. More die on both sides. But you remain free to marry an Andromedan noble someday. And if I accept, then you become the first Andromedan to marry outside our species. You'll face criticism, challenges I can't even imagine. But you'll also have the chance for happiness with someone who clearly adores you. Zara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. Not just her future, but the future of 2 civilizations rested on her choice. I need time to think, she said. Take all the time you need, her father said gently. But remember, tomorrow is the betrothal ceremony. If you're going to refuse, it must be before then. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She walked the station corridors, her mind churning. She found herself in the observation deck where she'd spent so many hours watching the stars. Michael was already there. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the cosmic backdrop. Couldn't sleep either, she asked. He turned, managing a tired smile. Too much to think about. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the universe spin slowly around them. My father offered to cancel everything, she said finally. I know. He told me. Michael's voice was carefully neutral. What will you decide? Zara turned to face him fully. Do you remember what you said about binary stars? How they make each other brighter? Yes. I think we could be like that. Different, but connected. Making each other better. Hope flickered in his eyes. Are you saying? I'm saying that tomorrow at the ceremony, I'll say yes. Not just for the treaty or our planets, but for us. Michael's face transformed with joy. He reached for her hands, holding them gently. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She smiled through her silver tears. I choose you, Michael Chen. I choose us. He pulled her into an embrace, and she let him. Her telepathic abilities surged, showing her his overwhelming happiness, his relief, his love. Yes, love. He loved her, this strange human who had shown her that different didn't mean inferior. I love you too, she whispered, not realizing she'd spoken aloud until he pulled back to look at her. You can feel what I feel. She nodded. When we touch, your mind opens to me. It's beautiful. They held each other as the stars wheeled overhead, two beings from different worlds who had found each other across the vast darkness of space. Tomorrow would bring ceremonies and politics, but tonight they had each other and the choice they'd made for love. The ceremony. The great hall of the space station had been transformed. Banners in purple and blue represented Andromeda 7, while green and gold honored Earth. Thousands of lights floated near the ceiling like captured stars. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to witness this historic union. Zara stood before a mirror in her dressing chamber, barely recognizing herself. Her wedding gown was a masterpiece of combined cultures. Andromedan crystal threads wove through earth silk, creating a garment that shifted between purple and white as she moved. Her silver hair was adorned with both Andromedan light gems and earth diamonds. You look magnificent, Queen Lyria said, adjusting her daughter's veil. I'm nervous, Zora admitted. So was I on my wedding day. But I was marrying someone I'd known my whole life. You're braver than I ever was. Keela, her handmaiden, entered. Princess, the Earth women wish to see you. They say it's tradition. Two human women entered, one elderly with silver hair, the other younger with Michael's same dark eyes. Zara recognized them from photos, Michael's grandmother and sister Amy. We wanted to welcome you to our family, the grandmother said warmly. She held out a small box. This was my mother's, and her mother's before that. We call it something old, an Earth tradition for brides. Inside was a delicate gold locket with tiny photos, generations of Chen women. You honor me, Zara said, touched by the gesture. Amy stepped forward shyly. I brought something too. Michael said you love the ocean. She offered a hairpin shaped like a wave, made from earth pearls. Something from our world to yours. Zara embraced them both, feeling the warmth of their acceptance. They weren't seeing her as an alien, but as family. The ceremony itself blended both cultures perfectly. Michael waited at the altar wearing formal robes that mixed Andromedan and Earth styles. When Zara appeared, his face lit up with such pure joy that several guests wiped away tears. King Zoran performed the Andromedan blessing while the Earth officiant read traditional vows. When they reached the telepathic bonding ceremony, gasps echoed through the hall. As Zara and Michael joined hands, a visible aura surrounded them, silver and gold lights intertwining. This was unprecedented. The bonding ritual usually created a faint shimmer between Andromedans, but between Zara and Michael, it blazed like a small sun. Two minds, one purpose, they recited together. Two hearts, one love. Two paths, now joined as one. The light pulsed brighter with each word. Even non-telepaths could see the connection between them. When they kissed, the light exploded outward in a shower of sparkles that rained down on the assembly. I've never seen anything like it, whispered Elder Thex. Their bond is stronger than any in our history. The reception that followed was a joyous chaos of mixed cultures. Andromedan dancers performed alongside Earth musicians. Traditional foods from both worlds filled the tables. Michael's siblings charmed the Andromedan nobles with their warmth, while Zara's cousins peppered the humans with questions about Earth customs. During a quiet moment, Zara and Michael escaped to the garden, where they'd shared their first real conversation. They could still hear the celebration, but here among the flowers, they had privacy. No regrets? Michael asked, holding her close. None, she assured him. Though I think we shocked everyone with that bonding ceremony. Your father said it proved what he suspected, that we're meant to be together. He grinned. He actually smiled at me. I think he might even like me now. They danced slowly among the roses and crystal flowers, no music needed. Their telepathic bond hummed between them, sharing emotions too deep for words. Where will we live? Zara asked. Wherever you want. Earth, Andromeda 7, Or maybe that new colony they're building where our species can live together. The colony sounds perfect. A new world for a new beginning. As they swayed together, other couples began joining them in the garden. Human and Andromedan, inspired by their example. Commander Vex danced with Amy, teaching her Andromedan steps. Michael's grandmother sat with Queen Lyria, sharing stories about their grandchildren. "Look what we started," Michael murmured. "A bridge between worlds," Zara replied, "built on love instead of fear." New beginnings. 1 year later, the colony of New Harmony bustled with activity. Buildings that combined Andromedan crystal architecture with Earth's environmental designs rose from the landscape. Streets were filled with beings from both worlds, living and working together. Zara stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. 2 suns meant spectacular sunsets on this world. "She's finally asleep," Michael said, joining her. He looked tired but happy, cradling their infant daughter. Luna was a miracle, the first child born of both species. She had her mother's violet eyes and her father's dark hair. Her skin was a soft lavender that seemed to glow in the evening light. Most remarkably, she showed signs of both telepathic abilities and human empathy beyond her months. "Your sister sent another package," Zara said, amused. "More Earth toys. And your cousin sent more Andromedan learning crystals. She'll be the most educated baby in the galaxy." They watched their daughter sleep, still amazed by her existence. The scientists had said pregnancy might be impossible between their species, but love had found a way. "The council wants us to speak at the integration ceremony tomorrow," Michael said. "About what?" "Our success. Other mixed couples are following our example. There are 12 marriages planned between humans and Andromedans this month alone." Zara smiled. "We did start something, didn't we? The best kind of revolution, one based on understanding instead of conflict." Luna stirred in her sleep, and both parents felt it. A gentle telepathic touch from their daughter's developing mind. She broadcasted pure contentment and love, bringing tears to their eyes. "She's going to be extraordinary," Zara whispered. "She already is, the first of a new generation. Children who'll grow up seeing no difference between purple and pink skin, between telepathy and technology." A chime announced visitors. Through the window, they saw a familiar sight. Their families arriving for dinner. It had become tradition. Every week, both sides gathered to share food and stories. "Your grandmother brought pie," Michael grinned, "and your mother's bringing that Andromedan dessert I love." As they went to greet their guests, Zora reflected on the journey that brought them here. From fear and uncertainty to love and hope. From an arranged marriage to a partnership that changed history. "Zara." Michael paused at the door. "Thank you." "For what?" "For choosing us. For being brave enough to see past the differences to find love." She kissed him gently. "Thank you for showing me that humans aren't so scary after all." Luna gurgled happily in her father's arms, as if agreeing. Their daughter would grow up in a universe where humans and Andromedans were allies, friends, and family. Where love had conquered fear and built a bridge between the stars. The doorbell rang again, and they could hear their families' voices. Human and Andromedan mingled together. Amy was teaching Vex Earth card games. Michael's grandmother was swapping recipes with Queen Lyria. Kane Zoran was debating philosophy with Michael's brother David. "Ready?" Michael asked. "Ready," Zora confirmed. They opened the door to their future. A future where 2 species had become one family, where understanding had replaced suspicion, where children like Luna would grow up never knowing the fear that once divided their peoples. As the evening star rose over New Harmony, casting its light on this blended world, Zara knew they had created something beautiful. Not just a marriage or a treaty, but hope for all who dared to look beyond differences and see the potential for love. The alien princess who had once feared marrying the human now couldn't imagine life without him. And somewhere in the galaxy, other couples were making the same discovery. That love was the universal language that needed no translation.